Here's what I know so far. Osmond Sadler's cult is known as Los Illuminados. They've resurrected some sort of parasitic organism they call Las Plagas. That's all my organization knows for sure, though Sadler's occult activities seem worthy of investigation. The Salazar family, Castellans for generations, possess the ability to control Las Plagas. The organization's hypothesis is that a unique frequency of sonic wave, sensed only by the parasites, is used to control them. The same principle used in dog whistles. This was inferred through the analysis of a tissue sample we retrieved. The tissue contained an organ presumably used for sensing sound waves. I've seen cult members carrying ceremonial rods, and I wonder if they emit these sounds. Of course, this is purely theoretical. The organization needs samples of the parasite to confirm or disprove these theories. That is the main objective of my mission, and the only way to prove my loyalty to the organization. The opening moves in this chess game have been played. There's no turning back now. Among all the people involved in this, Sera has the least entanglements. He works for no organization, preferring to move on his own. I'm the one who told the organization of his importance. I did it because I like him. His history betrays an enthusiasm I once shared. It was a stroke of luck that I happened to intercept his email for help. It seems he can't trust the police, so he sent the email to an old friend from college. He must have thought his friend was still alive. At any rate, that's how I managed to find him. Apparently, he's been conducting his own investigation of the cult while doing research on Las Plagas. A brilliant scientist. He's accumulated a pile of data and pieced it all together. Must be why Sadler hired him. Too bad Sera's snooping has aroused his suspicion. When I told him who I was, he practically begged to be taken into custody. He needed protection. He said, I have no love for Las Plagas or this stupid cult. I want out. I just want peace and quiet again. I ordered him to bring me a Master Plaga specimen, a sample for evidence. Looks like he's one of the few people whom Sadler actually trusts. Tracking him down and getting my hands on the sample shouldn't be difficult. I doubt the cult will take kindly to his escape, though. I'll have to guide this along if I want it to go smoothly. Jack Krauser has been the subject of extensive study and research by the organization. His skills and personality have been tested both on and off the battlefield. If he weren't the best, he would become a liability that would jeopardize the rest of us. My conclusion? He's a great soldier. No more, no less. As long as he's well compensated, he shouldn't cause any problems for us. If he does start to get restless, I can take care of him. I've studied his combat style and can deal with that arm of his if necessary. Krauser answers directly to Wesker, and it was Wesker who decided that Krauser should be sent to spy on the cult. He also decided to send me along. I wonder if it wasn't to keep an eye on Krauser. No doubt, Krauser has already fallen to the temptation of Las Plagas and the power they represent. This could have dire consequences for the organization. On some level, however, this may be a necessary development, as his role is to disrupt this farce of a play. That said, the stage and its players will ultimately come crashing down in the end. Bad luck for him. But he'll play the patsy in the end and take the fall for all of us. That's why I need to make sure things keep going exactly as they are. Leon S. Kennedy, perhaps the most essential part of this mission. This story wouldn't be complete without him and his formidable survival skills. He has what it takes to survive against overwhelming odds. I've seen him do it before. And he's improved since then. Practically a genius, he has smarts and he knows how to use them. On top of that, his service as a government agent has toughened him up. I'll work behind the scenes to make him think he's the primary player here, though it may be naive of me to think that'll be easy. Considering the involvement of both Sadler and Krauser, the possibility of unforeseen problems is there. But I need him in the supporting role for me to achieve my goals. I'll do whatever it takes to keep him in his place, and make this all go smoothly. Of course, his role didn't exist at all until a few months ago. Back then, my role was much simpler too. But that was before the President's daughter was abducted and Leon was dispatched alone to find her. Talk about a major script revision. I don't think I need to worry. Leon's been through worse and always comes up smelling like roses. His consistent luck is part of the reason why I have absolute and unshakable faith in my vision of what's in store for him. It wasn't easy, but I'd say the mission was a success. Getting my hands on the sample was my initial objective after all. But I've sent Wesker a different present, just as the organization ordered. Pretending to work with him was entertaining. Albert Wesker. I wonder where he's headed next. Something tells me this whole affair has just been a taste of what he's got in store. To him, Umbrella represented power. He used it to hide behind while he made plans of his own. And now the Umbrella's been folded. With the sanctuary of their old Umbrella ruined, those in power struggle to erect a new one. They are aware of their own crookedness and deceit as they engage in their personal war of light and darkness. That's why Wesker will stop at nothing in opening his new Umbrella. The giant pharmaceutical corporation S maintains medical and drug facilities the world over. We know for certain that Wesker has been in contact with them following Umbrella's demise. There's no doubt we'll next hear from him there. The organization must remain vigilant. But Wesker's not stupid. He knows exactly what the organization is thinking. He and I still have time to continue our little game of cat and mouse before the next move is played. This mission may be over, but the battle is just beginning.
So in case you guys are wondering which company S is, that's actually Tricell. The Resident Evil podcast team told me that originally Tricell was going to be referred to as Seashell, which was a very weird name, so that's why old Capcom changed the name Seashell to Tricell. But can you believe that Separate Ways OG actually referenced an organization that would become the main antagonist in Resident Evil 5 OG? They didn't even do this in Separate Ways Remilk. Tricell isn't mentioned once in Separate Ways Remilk. And it doesn't make sense because we're setting up Resident Evil 5 Remilk. Why would they not mention Tricell here? It doesn't make any sense. Why would they neglect Ada's reports entirely in Separate Ways Remilk? It just goes to show that they didn't care about telling a story. The story itself is just bonkers. It's all over the place. You don't even know if there is a story they're trying to tell in Separate Ways Remilk. Everything that they showcase in Separate Ways Remilk has no importance. And even including characters like Wesker. What's the point? There's literally no point in including Wesker, and just his motivations and the way he's presented as a villain with his voice acting, and also the fact that they even have to include him as a presence. Why are they even trying to include Wesker physically? His presence in the DLC achieves the same kind of outcome as what it would be like if he was just communicating with Ada over a communicator. Just makes no sense. Just from this one set of files alone, I feel more of a story, more of an attachment to Ada, to Wesker, to the overall story of Resident Evil. What happened? I mean, she's talking about Sera here. She's talking about Krauser. She's talking about Leon. She's talking about Wesker. She's talking about Tricell. This was back when Resident Evil actually cared about its universe. But ever since Resident Evil 2 Remake released, they haven't even cared about the universe anymore, because they've just restricted all those titles to separate timelines. And Resident Evil Village was at least trying to expand the storyline, but the routes it took, like with making the BSAA evil out of nowhere, and then also with making the lore of the Mutant Myci even more confusing. I mean, it was very flawed. And then Resident Evil 4 Remake comes along, and its story integrity, its main foundations, its character designs, its gameplay, its story scenarios, its bosses, everything involving the parasite. It's all completely different. For no reason. Everything feels so fantastical. Everything feels so extreme for the sake of being extreme. Everything just feels so laughably stupid. Everything feels so comedic. I mean, Resident Evil 4 Remake and Separate Ways Remake, they're both comedies. They don't care about what they're doing at all. They're just products made by the most confused development team in gaming history, and the most incompetent development team ever. And the way the characters just act so out of character in Resident Evil 4 Remake and Separate Ways Remake, it's so blatantly obvious. Like, if you played these games, even if you didn't play these games, when you look at their actions in Resident Evil 4 Remake, nothing they say or do makes any sense. There's so much more common sense and logic put into Resident Evil 4 OG than in Resident Evil 4 Remake. And at least Ada is actually portrayed as the character she's meant to be. She's a spy for the rival company, at the time right here, with a very ambiguous moral compass. I mean, the actress here presents herself as very secretive. You don't know if she's being the hero, you don't know if she's being the villain. You know she has ulterior motives, you know she's going to betray Wesker. Just her grammar, just her vernacular, just her voice acting. It's incredible. This trumps any kind of voice acting that they tried to pass off as such in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Ada in Resident Evil 4 Remake is a joke. And it's impossible to fully state how bad she is as a character in this one video alone. I have my blind playthrough of Separate Ways Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake to compensate for that. I mean, what else is there to say? The fact that they neglected this from Separate Ways Remake. New Capcom is just showing their true colors by neglecting such interesting lore like this. What's wrong with them? Like, how can you say that Separate Ways Remake has cohesive storytelling, yet it doesn't even bother including files like this, and all the lore we get in Separate Ways Remake is not even lore? It's just details that we already knew, blatantly obvious details, very confusing lore points. Nothing that is comparable to what I've demonstrated here with Ada's reports. It is mind-boggling that anyone can defend that pre-alpha of a DLC. That's part of a pre-alpha of a Resident Evil title. Resident Evil 4 Remake and Separate Ways Remake are mockeries of Resident Evil 4 OG and Separate Ways OG. That's all I have to say right now. Because I just cannot recollect the numerous problems I have already pointed out with Resident Evil 4 Remake and Separate Ways Remake, because there's too many to count. This is just sad, guys. It is so sad that they just stopped caring about Resident Evil by the time of Resident Evil 4 Remake. New Capcom has just dug their own graves, honestly, as I've already pointed out in that final part to my blind playthrough of Separate Ways Remake. But anyway, This was just a little showcase of Ada's reports, one of the coolest parts of the Separate Ways DLC that they didn't bother including in Separate Ways Remilk, which shows their lack of care towards Resident Evil 4 as a brand and as a main Resident Evil title. And they try to pass off Resident Evil 4 Remilk and Separate Ways Remilk as these true reimaginings, yet they don't even bother standing on their own two legs as games or even products. They're rip-offs, they're pre-alphas. Oh, dear lord. It's a joke. It is an absolute joke. I'm gonna stop the commentary right here. That's all I have to say right here. Long live Resident Evil 4 OG and Separate Ways OG. Damn Resident Evil 4 Remilk and Separate Ways Remilk to hell.